Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video in the Kotlin series. This time I'm going to teach you about for loops. What's up everybody? So now I'm going to teach you guys about loops, which is a way to repeat code. When I first learned about this, I thought it was really cool because it is really awesome. So specifically, we're going to start with for loops, and for loops is a way to iterate over a range, a list, a collection, or anything with an iterator. I know that's a lot, but let me just show you an example. So if we have a menu, let's say we have a val menu, which is a list of, food items. We have pizza, we have pasta, we have a burger, and maybe we have, for the vegans, we'll get them a salad, right? Let's say that we want to make a program that goes through our list of items for our menu and then prints them out. Some kind of restaurant program, right? Now, at this point in our knowledge, we could do it by just printing out each thing one by one. So we could do menu, and then we could say the first one, so index 0, and then we could do the same thing for the second one and just repeat that over and over, right? But that's a little repetitive. So what we could do is use a for loop to do that for us. So we could do for, press tab to complete that, and then in the parentheses, you put what you're trying to loop over. So let me just write it out. So we're going to do item in menu, and then we're going to open this up with a curly brackets, and then for each item we want to print it out. Okay, so before I explain this, let's go ahead and run it and let's see what it gives us. There we go. So we get pizza, pasta, burger, and salad. So the way this works is basically you just tell it what you're looping through, which is our menu, and then you're going to do in. That's the keyword in that we learned about with ranges last episode. It's just kind of used in a different context. And then we have an item. This is just a name. You can make this actually anything. So you could say food. You could say food item, maybe anything you want. So this is a temporary variable for this for loop here that you could use to represent each item in our menu list. So what this for loop is going to do is it's going to go through each item of this list here, and then for each of the items, it's going to run this code inside of the curly brackets here. And this is why it's called a loop, because it's repeating over and over for every single item that we have. So the initial value of the food item variable is going to be pizza, then it's going to run the code inside of here, and then once it's done running the code inside of here, it's going to reassign this to the next value, which is pasta. And it's going to repeat the process over and over and over until it reaches the end of the list. Each repetition of this for loop here is called an iteration. Iteration. So in other words, you can say that you're iterating over this list here. So we could spice this up a little more if we want to. So we could say here is the menu for today. And then we could also add on to this if we want to. So we could add more code. So we could say print line sounds yummy. So what this will do is for every single item in the menu list, it's going to print it out and then say sounds yummy right after. Because you have to remember that it's running the same exact code here, both of these lines, for every single item in the list. So if we run it, there we go. So we get here's the menu for today. Pizza sounds yummy. Pasta sounds yummy. Burger sounds yummy. Salad sounds yummy. So we could do something like this if we want to. So we could control X to cut that. We could do if food item is equal to pizza, we could say sounds yummy. So whenever the for loop is looping through the list of items in the menu, it's only going to do sounds yummy if the food item is pizza. So if we rerun this, let's see what we get. There we go. So okay, here's the menu for today. Pizza sounds yummy, pasta, burger, salad. So hopefully that makes sense. That's the basics of a for loop. Again, just to recap, you do for, that's the new keyword that we learned about, and then you do parentheses, and then you give it a variable name. So this is going to hold the value of whatever you're looping through. So in this case, we'll call it food item since we're looping through a list of food items. And then we're going to do in, and then we're going to do the name of the thing that we're looping through, which is the menu variable, which has a list. And a list data type is specifically able to be iterated through because it's iterable, which I'll teach you about in just a minute here. But that means that you can't do this, for example, if you have like a regular variable like var age is equal to 5. Of course, you can't use that because it's just a number, right? You can't really loop through a number. That's just one value. So it only makes sense for something like a list or an array, or you can do a range. So you could do ranges. So for example, if you want to just loop through a bunch of numbers for some reason, you could do for, you could say I, in, and then you could do whatever range you want to do. So like 12 dot dot and then like 35. So what this will do is if we open this up with curly brackets, what this will do is loop every single time for every single number in the range. So 12, 13, 14, etc. all the way to 35, including 35. So if we just print this out so we can check it out, let's see what we get. There we go. So as you can see, it's printing out every single number starting at 12 and then ending at 35. That makes sense, right? Now you don't have to use I. You may see that a lot because whenever you're working with for loops, especially if you come from another language, it's the convention to use I whenever you have something like an index. But you don't have to use I. You can name it whatever you want, like range number, literally whatever you want, depending on the context of your program, of course. But I is a common convention when you're looping through numbers. You can also make this as big as you want, so you could really test your program out to have some fun. So let's try running this now and see what happens. Look at that. Okay, it wasn't that bad. It ran really fast, so let's just see how big we can make it before it doesn't let us do it anymore. Oop, I hit the wrong button. So boom, look at that. It's looping. It's printing out all the numbers. It's going to take a little bit longer now since I gave it a really big number, but it's working. Pretty cool. Anyway, so stop that. But that's what I told you about last time when I told you about ranges. They're very useful for certain things like conditions and whatnot, but they're also very useful for loops. So something else that you can do with ranges, now that we know how to use them with for loops, is you could do something like I in, and we'll do like 1 to 10. So 1 dot dot 10, and then we can print line I. And let's comment this one out. We don't need this anymore. Let's run it. We should just get 1 through 10, right? Really easy, really simple. What we could do is whenever we use a range in a for loop, we could define the step. So we could do step 2. So what this will do is instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it'll start at 1, but it'll count up by 2. So it'll increment this number here, I, by 2 every single time instead of going to the next number. So let me show you when I run this. So there we go. We get 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So it starts at 1 and then counts up by 2 every single time. That's exactly what the step is for. So if we change it to 3, we're still going to start at 1, but the next number should be 4, and then 7, and then 10. There we go, 1, 4, 7, 10. We can even use the down 2 function that we learned about. So we could start at like 100, and we could do down 2. We could do 100 down to 1. And we could say step, we'll do step by 10. So start at 100, then go down by 10 every single time. So 10, 90, 80, yeah, there we go. 100, 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, all the way to 10. Of course, if you bump up the number, right, let's say we do 15. Let's let it run a little bit. So as you can see here, it starts at 100, that's the starting number, but it doesn't end at 1, which you would expect it to end at 1. But since the step is 15, it's obviously going to subtract 15 every single time since we're going down. And because 10 minus 15 is lower than 1, which is our lower bound here, so it won't even get to that point in the for loop, which I think makes sense, right? But that's pretty cool, right? That's how you can use ranges within your for loops, if you ever want to loop through numbers and stuff like that. Okay, so we have some names here, John, Billy Bob Jenkins, Randy, and Peanut. And something that you may want to do, which is very often done in other programming languages, is you may want to loop through a list of things, but also provide the index. So for example, if I do for I in names, that would just, give me, and I print it out, that would simply assign the variable the value of each of these, names here and then print them out. Let's just verify that real quick. There we go. So we get John, Billy Bob Jenkins, Randy, and Peanut. But if I go here and do names dot indices, what this will do is give me the index of every single item in this list here. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Remember, it starts at 0, right? So what this will do now is whenever the for loop runs, it's not going to iterate and print each name. It's going to iterate and print each index. So as you can see here, we get 0, 1, 2, 3. So what you could do is something like this. We could say index I, and then we could say the name, and then we could use the index to get the actual name from the list. So we could do something like names and access it through that. And let's run this to see what happens. And there we go. So we get index 0, name is John. Index 1, name is Billy Bob Jenkins. 2, Randy. 3, Peanut. So it's still the same old for loop that we had before. The only thing that's different here is that we're using the indices property of the names list that we have here to get every single index and use that as the thing that we're looping through rather than the actual names themselves. Now at this point, you've seen me use a for loop to loop through a bunch of different things. We have, a normal list of strings here. We have some numbers here. We did ranges as well. So that begs the question, what can I loop through? And this goes to my initial explanation here. A for loop is a way to iterate over a range, a list, a collection, or anything with an iterator. So what is an iterator? We're going to learn about iterators specifically in a video about it later on. But something that you could do to test it out is every time you have a variable here, let's say we have a list, right? To know if we can loop through something, we could do menu dot, and we could do iterator. And if this method here is available, this means that you can loop through it. An iterator is just something that you could loop through essentially. That's just what it is in other words. So a list is obviously going to be iterable because not only does it have an iterator, but it's a list of values. So obviously you want to be able to make computer programs that can loop through those list of values, right? Ranges also have iterators because we can loop through them. So we could do val test range is equal to 1 dot dot 10. Now we could do test range dot iterator. So a range is an iterator, that's why we can loop through it. Another thing that has an iterator is actually strings. So we could do val potato is equal to I like potato. And then we could do potato.iterator. And there we go, we have iterator. And as you can see, this returns a char iterator or a car iterator, however you want to say it. So what this will actually do is return every single character of the given string. So this is a string of I like potato. So if we just try looping through this, we could do for letter in potato. As you might be able to guess here, what this will do is, we're using a for loop, and every single iteration of this for loop will have a letter assigned to this variable here, letter. So it's going to start at I, then space, then L, then I, then K, then E. You get the point. So let's go ahead and run this and see what it looks like. There we go. So we can see I, space LIKE space POTATO. And that's pretty much all I want to show you for this episode, guys. Now you guys know how to loop through stuff using a for loop. These are going to be very, very, very important to your future programs that you're going to be creating, because you're going to find yourself having to loop through things a lot more than you would probably expect. I mean, this is a pretty basic example here, like you just have a list of menu items, but think about any type of program, like maybe an accounting program that just goes through, an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. I'm just making it up. Every single row, that's something that you could loop through or iterate through. Let's say you're making like a Minecraft mod, for example, and you want to access someone's inventory. You would loop through every single item in their inventory. Literally every single program that you're going to create is probably going to have a for loop. And that just goes to show that looping is just a very important thing in code, because it's a way to repeat code. And we very often need to repeat code. One, because it's nice to be able to repeat things. But two, the most important part, as we saw in the initial example here, it makes our code a lot more simple and concise, because we don't have to repeat the same code over and over and over. So anyways, that's enough talking. Hopefully you guys get the point. This is how we could do for loops. So stay tuned for next episode where we learn about while loops. So that's it for this video, everybody. I really hope you learned something new. If you liked the video, please hit the like button, and if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Make sure to also check the description below for important links to code and other resources, but also really important, join our Discord. We have a big community of over 5,000 programmers, and it's a place where you can find new friends or get help on any code that you're stuck on. If you want to support what I do on this channel, please consider hitting the join button below, and this will allow you to support my channel for as low as $1 a month, but there are different tiers to choose from if you want to. For anyone that becomes a member on my channel, you get a special rank on my Discord server, early access to new videos, and you can just see yourself on the screen right now. So if that sounds cool to you, feel free to join. If you don't want to, that's fine. If you can't, that's okay too. I really just appreciate you watching the video anyway. Thank you so much. And that's it. Peace.